And I'm joined by my good friend, Mr. Ryan Vacey of Beyond the Vibe. How you keeping, man?
I am doing well. On this show, you've had the likes of Doug Aldridge, Scott Holiday,
Yeah.
and, and now we've come crashing back down to earth.
I was building up, mate. I was building up.
Yeah, it's all been leading up to this moment.
Now, when I spoke to Scott Holiday, he went, "You're not playing me after Ryan, are you?" And I went,
Yeah,
"Okay, I won't."
he was like, I just can't follow this guy.
No, exactly. No, obviously, like we've got to know each other quite well over the last couple of years, man. I want to get you back on.
Right.
Obviously, we were talking about a minute ago, sort of before we hit press record, that right at the sort of beginning of you and then you and Aaron then started off Beyond the Vibe. We had you on for an hour and seeing where you guys were going to take it. So I thought it'd be cool to have you back on for a bit of a catch
Yeah,
up.
man. Yeah, I mean, since we last did one of these, the everything has changed. Literally, the world has changed. you know, like the whole Beyond the Vibe podcast thing. It was born out of a lockdown thing,
Mm.
of course. When you've got nothing else to do and you can't see people, what, what do? Well, you try and bring people to you, don't you? Try and do an online thing. But now it's become this kind of thing where you like take it seriously now. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, I mean, not that I didn't take it seriously at the beginning, but you realize it's more of a thing now. Like if I was to remove it completely, I'd be a bit lost without it. At this
yeah,
point, and yeah, it's mad to think of the guests that myself and when we did it with Aaron that
yeah.
we've had, is it's crazy, really. I mean, I imagine you're in the same position when with the people you've had. I mean, as we just mentioned there, um, some names,
Yeah.
have come into my terraced house.
Same.
you know? Yeah.
You say it is weird, and you sit there, and I've chatted to some great rising bands that come through
Mm,
Brainside Diet, and then I've sat and spoke to genuinely some childhood heroes, like
yeah.
and some but heroes of mine as I grow through my older years as well. You're chatting to people like I've been fortunate enough to chat to people like KK Downing on the thing, and
Mm.
you get a message going, "Would you like to chat to KK Downing on a Sunday
Yeah.
morning?" And you're like, "All right, yeah."
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
chat to KK and then I'll put a roast on. Like, right, okay, that's
I
fine.
know.
That's a perfectly normal sentence.
I know it's really bizarre. The one which kind of made me go, "Well, that's a strange thing,"
Yeah,
was when we interviewed Joanne Shaw Taylor. She said she goes, "Sorry, I'm about 5 or 10 minutes late because I was a bit longer than what I was expecting to because I was on Planet Rock." And I was like, "You've come. Hang on a minute. You've come from Planet Rock to my living room in Newark.
yeah,
Like, do you realize the drop? you know. But yeah, it's been an amazing ride, man, and it's starting to build up now. The viewer base is a bit bigger than what we used to have. Um, the some of the guests, I mean, recently just had a blues musician, Jack Broadbent on.
yeah. Like
Um,
we were saying when we were talking for the
yeah,
it
when we did
done for
the
yours, but like I hadn't heard him before, man. But I'm really like him. I've since played the singles on the show after watching
mm,
your interview with him. Really
yeah,
interesting.
it's again, it's another chance thing. This is what I think is the wonderful thing about the internet because you know I saw one of his videos just appear on my Facebook, and I thought this guy's a cool guy. He seems interesting. He's got like a great story. That'd be great for the pod. And I go on his website. I see the PR stuff. You email the thing. I think let's just see what
Yeah,
happens. Throw it out there. Within about 20 minutes, booking him in for an interview. It's like, this is mad, you know, like so strange, really bizarre. But that's what I think is the great thing about, you know, this whole internet thing. You can bring people to you.
Definitely.
And, you know, there's so many people, particularly with this podcast, where I'd have never spoken to these people, you know, without this show.
Well, not being funny, but I mean, you wouldn't have got to know each other without.
Yeah, even yourself, you know. There's countless people, you know. I think we're on at the time, and probably this coming out, probably about 67, 68 episodes now.
Crazy, man.
Which is mad to think, you know. I remember the first interview that we did was with, you know, Richie, obviously known for his Heaven's Basement.
Yeah. Now Misery Smile.
Yeah, now of Misery Smile as well. And I remember we had the, you know, we did the old email thing. It was kind of the first time we'd done all that. And it was like, oh, there's an opportunity to have a chat with him. And I was like, but even back then I was like, you know, really? Is that possible? And, you know, now I'm speaking with people that have got like 100,000 likes or something like that. It's just me in a small living room. It's mad to think, you know. Hell of a journey, but it's carrying on. Hopefully, I mean, but maybe by the time this has come out, we'll have done a couple of in-person ones for the first time.
Oh, nice.
Cool. Finally moving out of the living room. About 65 episodes in. Finally getting out there. But
I've not moved out of this living room yet to do interviews.
Well, the thing is that, you know, I think after a while, I feel every so often you'll notice that certain things change on the program, you know, because I'm always trying to do something different or mix things up a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, I do this with multiple things. After a while, I feel like it gets a bit stale, so I need something different with it, you know. That's even with guests, you know. I try and keep getting new people that maybe even a month or so ago that I haven't heard of before. You know, it's always trying to find that next person, or, you know, somebody that's got a particularly interesting story. Because, you know, I always try and go a reoccurring theme. I mean, the guys from the Alley Ties take the mickey out of me for it, but I always say, don't I, you know, at the beginning, you know, let's go back to the very beginning. Apparently they play a drinking game to it for the amount of times I said it. but you know, I think that those stories, you know, no matter what musician, you know, we've had a range of people, you know, even Richard Shaw, who was, of course, at the time in Cradle of Filth, you know, we've gone from that to, you know, blues musicians and lots of different people. But it's always interesting hearing that's, you know, that how that all began.
It is always especially in those formative years, because everyone has such a different story as to how they got to. It's not always just as like it's normally not, you know, oh, my dad played guitar and he taught me. It's normally like just some random stroke of events.
Yeah, there can be like chance encounters, or the big thing I've noticed recently is there's always like, you can, you know, even if they're into music or something, but you can usually track it down like back to a specific moment.
Yeah.
There is usually a tipping point, whether it's seeing a band live, like a different, you know, somebody that's maybe majorly influenced them, or, you know, a parent giving them an instrument or something like that. You know, the one that we spoke about online a while ago was with when I spoke with Susie Quattro. Yes. She mentioned about getting the, what was it, the
1950s Fender Precision.
Yeah, a Fender 1950s one. She was just handed that. Like, she was like, I want to play bass. Have you got a bass? To
Dad went, yeah, there you go. There's that.
Yeah.
Every bass player, myself included, won.
Yeah, and
like, that blew my mind. Like my friend Emily, she plays bass as well, and
Mm.
her pride and joy was her 1957 Fender Precision white, cost her a lot of money, worked very hard to save up for, and all the rest of it. It was pride of place and all that. And my proud moment was getting to play it once.
Yeah.
And then you just like watching the Susie Quattro, and she's like, "Oh yeah, my dad goes this," and she's like, "I remember saying in the thing, every bass player hates me for this," and I'm like, "I hate you for this now," just.
And that's it though. I think these all of these, even these bigger musicians, the ones that have had these long, amazing careers, it always goes back to these kind of very grounding stories. Like she didn't even know what, that was a particularly special bass at the time. And, I think it's interesting to go back to those roots because it shows that, under all of that skill and, the level that they're now at, if you go right back to the beginning, they were just like me or you. I mean, I can't play anything still, and it kind of makes me feel a little bit better, knowing that at some point, Susie Quattro couldn't play anything, So it's always good to kind of hear those kind of things, and even we have this ongoing theme of reluctant vocalists.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to sing, apparently. You get the odd person that's like, oh no, but by and large, so many people are, they talk about how they used to get very nervous and they didn't want to be that front man. And, you look at them now, like Ricky Warwick mentioned.
That was the one that threw me, man. I mean, Ricky Warwick for me, it's got one of the best voices going. I love, I mean, admittedly, my dad sort of brought me up on the Almighty and stuff, and I love listening to Ricky's then. And then when he obviously then went and joined what was then Thin Lizzy, and then formed into Black Star Riders, I remember knowing him. The Almighty was slightly more aggressive, was slightly had a more kind of punk edge to it. So it was almost a different vocal that he was delivering compared to Black Star Riders days. It was not less, Mighty was a lot more aggressive in the vocal. And I remember, like, and I'm going to be honest, but I remember when they said that Ricky was taking the lead singer spot in Thin Lizzy at that point, I was like, that's not going to work. I love Ricky and I love the Almighty, but I didn't see it working. And anyway, we were at High Voltage Festival, and they were playing. It was the first time I'd seen that incantation of Thin Lizzy play. And they opened up with Waiting for an Alibi, and Ricky opens his mouth, and I was like, oh, I'm wrong.
Oh.
Like, like, I take it back, to the point where, like, picking up bass as a kid, it was, Phil Lynott was like an absolute hero to me, still is. So like Joe will tell you, like I made this sort of stand back a bit in this defiance, like, no, I'm going to stand by the sound desk and this isn't going to be good, and then I'm going to walk away. And I'm glad, I'm not too proud to say I was completely wrong. They played Waiting for an Alibi, which I was like, actually this sounds fucking amazing. And then they went into Jailbreak straight afterwards, which is my sort of one of my favorite Thin Lizzy songs. And it went from me going to like, this isn't going to work, to me like running into the crowd, basically, with Joe going, I thought we were standing back here. Like, I'm not standing back there. Come on.
Just pushing kids out the way.
Throwing small children over my shoulders.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great though, seeing, you see that, as you said then, you got Ricky Warwick, who's, killing it as a vocalist. And he talks, he's like, oh, I didn't want to be a singer or anything like that. And I think, particularly for somebody that's kind of an up and coming musician, to see that, it's, I imagine that it would give them that kind of confidence. It's like, well, if he's gone from here to here, I could perhaps do that, and that's something I've always kind of wanted to do. I've always wanted to kind of show that, with a lot of particularly rock music and kind of in that surrounding circle, you tend to, you put that musician or that band like really high up, as if they're kind of next door to like God level, they're like this amazing kind of untouchable person. Whereas I want to kind of look at what makes them human, where's the mistakes, what's the you know, where's the floor? Because I'm going to find it, you know, and see where the beginning is, you know, because at the end of the day, they are a normal person, and you know, I want to find that, and you know, I think it's much more relatable to see that.
It's finding that human side of people. Then
yeah, exactly. You know, I mean, I imagine like one of the ones that stick out in my head on your side is you know, doing Doug Aldridge. I mean, you know, I mean, me, I'd be sweating, you know, coming into an interview like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, you spoke. It was a while ago. I think you mentioned you were saying like you spoke to him for a while, and he was kind of like really chill about just like sticking around with you. And it's like
like I got told that some, as you'll know yourself, sometimes you get told, right, you've got 15-20 minutes.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't get a thing or whatever, and either way is cool. I'm just happy for people's time, you know. And I'm a huge fan of Doug Aldridge. You know, I've been since when my dad went to me to see Whitesnake, and it was like, whoa, this guy's incredible, you know. And seen him since, like, you know, seen him with the Dead Daisies and seen him with Glenn Hughes as well, you know. And I get an email saying, oh, you know, I got sent the promo single for. It was when John Corabi was still in the band. Actually, it was before Glenn had joined, and it was the last time they did with John Corabi, and I got sent some promo for that for a radio show, and I, you know, email back and say, you know, oh, I'm really enjoying that single. And then you get the email back like, well, would you like to interview one of the Dead Daisies? They're doing press at the moment. I'm like, sure. Okay.
Would you like to? Well, let me think.
I'll see what I've got on.
Yeah.
I'll check my diary. And I was like, yeah, no, definitely up for that. And then I get an email saying, oh, you know, Doug Aldridge is free on such and such date. And I'm like, wow. Right. Yeah. Okay. Like you say, it's one of those weird ones. And it was one of the first bigger interviews that I'd done. I'd done a lot of local acts and a lot of rising acts at that point, but it was probably and I don't like using it because to me, I've never had an artist on the show for an interview that I wasn't interested in. If I wasn't interested in them, I wouldn't interview them. And that's not, I got to talk to some friends about this the other day. And it's not an ego thing. It's not me going, oh, well, I only want to talk to the best. It's, I want to talk to someone I'm interested in.
Yeah.
Because if I'm not interested in you, the artist isn't going to get anything out of it, because they're going to get asked stock questions because I don't care enough to do some research or know stuff about them.
Yeah.
And equally, you know, listener doesn't get anything listened to because they're not listening to anything new or finding out anything. It's not exciting conversation to listen to. So, you know, whether it's a band that are rising through the ranks or a local band, even though I had local bands on the show, and whether to someone I've been a fan of for many, many years, there's got to be someone that, you know, I mean, I got to interview the Damn Truth. I listened to one song, heard, you know, this is who we are now, and was like, this is fucking awesome, and really, really enjoyed it. Again, you know, message promo guy back, message Mr. Pete Noble, who I know you know as well, and said, you know, Pete, really liking this, mate. And then it's, well, do you want to interview them? And I thought, yeah, I do actually. You know, I know one song, but I really want to talk to these guys. And that was the first time chatting with Lilo and PY, and you know, I had a great chat with them. But yeah, you know, going back to the Doug Aldridge thing, it was like, right, okay. And I'm sat here in my living room of my mid-terrace house talking to Doug Aldridge, and it's like, how did that happen? And what was funny was like, because it was someone I was like, it was the first one where I was like, this is someone I've liked for a long time.
Yeah.
I decided I was very meticulous in all my questions, you know. I was and knowing the answers to the question, I was being a smug idiot, you know. So I'll ask this, and then he'll talk with that, and then I can lead into this, and then we can talk about this, and that'll feed off of that, and then I'll go here, and then we'll talk about, and meticulously planned out because I was giddy basically. And then within about 15 minutes, I realized I hadn't actually looked at my notes. We just, like me and you are now, just started talking and having a very, very nice chat. And then I was sort of aware that I'm going, oh, I've hit the 20-minute mark there, and that's my time. That's my time up, and I've not actually asked anything I wanted to talk about. We've not even spoke about the album yet. And then, so we spoke about the album, but I thought, well, I'll speak about the album bit, and then we'll wrap it up. But at the time that I spoke to him, it was around the anniversary of Ronnie James Dio passing away. And so I brought that up, and he was very candidly talking about Dio and everything that happened around that time. And then we were chatting away, and you could feel it kind of wrapping up a little bit. And like, okay, cool, this is a cool point to break. And yeah, then from my 15, 20 minutes, I've been told, I looked down and I've been speaking to him for like nearly an hour. And I remember looking at the clock in just in the wall there, and I was like, oh, I've got to apologize for this, because this is really taking the mickey. And I sort of went, oh, Doug, I'm really sorry. I've just realized we've gone on time. I didn't mean to, I meant to go over a little bit, but not like triple the time that I was allowed.
Yeah, okay. maybe stretch it to 25 minutes.
Yeah, maybe stretch it that far. No, 5 minutes, not tripling it. And I remember saying to him, like, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to do that. It was just, I was enjoying our chat. And his words were to me were, Lee, brother, if you were pissing me off, I would have told you. And I was like, okay, I'll take that.
Yeah, and that's the thing, isn't it? It goes back to that thing of like, under all of that, the coolest guy around.
Yeah, man.
And he's just a chill guy at the end of the day. If you strip back the music and everything like that, he's a cool guy that's kind of, he's happy to chat with a guy in a terraced house.
I think that's the thing. I don't know how you found it. I know I've certainly got this impression. I think that because there is a lot of, there are a lot of great rock journalists out there. I'm not going to slag anyone off. There's a lot of great of it, but there's also a lot of people who will interview because they're just interviewing anyone that comes up. I think you find a lot of festivals and stuff, they'll grab any artist, and they're not really interested in them. And you get the stock questions, and we've all seen those interviews where people are just getting those stock questions all the time. Oh, come on, ask him something different. And I think the artist feels that as well. And I've certainly noticed with certain people that I've interviewed where they maybe have been doing a big promo run on a tour or an album, whatever it might be, that you'll mention something and it will click something in their head that goes, oh, hang on, this guy actually cares. This guy, I'm not just another interview. This guy is a fan. He is actually genuine interested. And then you just get so much more out of it. I don't know. I'm sure you found that with some, just from bits and pieces I've obviously seen you do on the show. But
the running theme that I've had from day one is at the end of the interview, you always hear the surprise, in the tone, it's I enjoyed that. it's as if it's kind of crept up on them, and they're like, oh, I actually surprisingly enjoyed this. And I do think maybe because you're doing a round of promos, you may be getting asked the same questions over and over again. There could be that. For me, I have a degree of structure because I know that obviously you're going to want to talk about an album.
Yeah.
Completely understandable and stuff. But I'd like to kind of dive in and around other things that maybe hasn't been mentioned in a long time. Or, I try and find something. I'll do quite a lot of research to try and dig something out. Yeah. And as you say, if they recognize that, it's like, okay, this guy has done his research.
Yes, I know.
It becomes that thing, and you can see it on their face. There's that kind of moment where they're like, oh, okay, this is kind of, this is serious. Or some people quite like the more kind of chill kind of talk, where I talk to them as, I imagine it's the same with you again, it's as if it's a normal conversation. I think some people, they have that moment of awe and it doesn't perhaps leave them.
No.
There is that thing of like, oh, this is such and such.
Yeah.
So they maybe treat them differently, and I think, they're interested by just having that normal chat.
Yeah, I always find interesting how I've had it with certain artists, and they've crossovered on interviews and stuff where I've spoke to them. They're like I spoke to TJ of Georgia Thunderbolts, and I was chatting to him, and then a couple of months later, and I'm chatting to Richard Young of Kentucky Headhunters, and I didn't realize that he'd have managed them. I knew they'd done shows together, but I didn't realize he had managed them. And then I was sort of chatting to Richard, who I've got to say, if you get a chance to interview Richard Young, man, do it. He was one of the nicest guys I have ever spoken to in my life. The only thing that was missing for me was that I wasn't sat on his front porch having a beer, because I could have sat and talked to him all night. He was an absolute sweetheart. He was an absolute diamond of a bloke. He really, really was. And so we were chatting away, and he was talking about, you know, how he sort of helped obviously Blackstone Cherry guys through the early days, and we were talking about that. And he's like, yeah, man, and there's this new band that I'm getting into, and I'm helping them out, and I call them at this fair thing out here, and they're great. And I'm like, okay, cool. And he's really excited by them. And me being me, I was like, oh, well, what's the name of the band, man? And I'll check them out. And he said, oh, they're called the Georgia Thunderbolts. And I was like, oh man, I love that band. And he's like, oh really? I'm like, yeah. And you can see him sort of go, does he? And then as soon as I said, yeah, I spoke to TJ a couple months ago, and the album this, you know, about this, and he's like, oh man, okay, cool. And then I'll tell TJ you say hello. And then like about a couple of days later, I had a message from TJ just basically saying, oh, I heard you were chatting to Richard. And I'm like, okay, why is that?
That's weird, isn't it?
Yeah. You know? Which is, you know, it's nice, but you think, why are they talking, you know? And it was the same. I had it was the most bizarre moment I've had in any interview. I was interviewing Jared James Nichols, and we were having a nice chat. I've met him a couple of times at some gigs, and Rambling Man Fame, real nice guy. And I was chatting away to him, and I sort of said, "Oh, so you know what you got planned in the sort of, you know, coming weeks and months for yourself." He said, "Oh, at the minute I'm just around my buddy Joe's," and he kept talking about his buddy Joe, and I was thinking, okay, his mate, I don't know. Then it transpired that the buddy Joe that he was talking of was Joe Bonamassa. And he's like, oh yeah, my buddy Joe, and I'm around his house at the moment. Like, I'm just doing a quick interview, and we've been writing all day, and we're gonna go into the studio. And I was like, sorry, did you just say Joe Bonamassa? And he's like, yeah, man, he's just sitting here with me on the couch while we do this interview. And I'm like, so wow. I'm interviewing you while you're sat next to Joe Bonamassa. And I was like, and he's just like, do you know Joe? And I'm like, not personally, no. You know, I think he's a great guitarist. I've seen him live a few times, but no, I've never spoke to him. And he just goes, and he literally just goes, hey Joe, Lee says hi. And there's just voice just goes, hi.
Weird,
like just bizarre moments, but
yeah,
it's what makes it fun, you know. And I love getting to speak to people. And I'll be honest, it's sort of Joe Lash, she said, oh, it's at that time of the week. She'll always jokingly say to me, oh, is it that time of the week ago? Because we'll literally like, we'll go do our shop on a Saturday morning, come back, we've unpacked, and it's like chill time before we do some jobs about the house, and it's always Beyond the Vibe goes on. And Joe it's at the point where Joe will go, oh, it's Saturday then. Like,
yeah, we've hit that date. Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see where we go next. You know, for me, I
when Aaron decided obviously he was gonna how did you feel when Aaron obviously was loads of stuff to do on Rivers and that?
It was something that was kind of, it was becoming a thing for a while. Like we knew, but we hadn't spoken about it. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, I mean, I imagine some people now be painting the image in their head of like some kind of Oasis style breakup, where they don't speak to each other anymore and hate each other. But no, it's not.
You weren't breaking his guitars or anything, were you?
Yeah, exactly. I was getting absolutely hammered and destroying his guitar. No, the thing is that obviously Aaron's band, that you know, they're going to go and record their next album.
Yeah.
And of course, this whole podcast thing, it started in lockdown when there was no gigging or touring. So, you know, it becomes obviously more of a stretch on time.
Yeah.
When, you know, when he's, if he's doing a gig in, I don't know, Bristol or wherever, and it's like there's less and less time to then fit in doing an interview, because it's like, oh, I can only do such and such. You know, I can only do this, or I can only do it if it's entirely online, or do you know what I mean? And it starts to become quite difficult for both of us. You know, we both kind of, I imagine, found it a bit of a stretch to kind of fit around. So there was kind of like this crossroads of either the whole thing comes to a conclusion, which I think would be a shame, because I feel like it's starting to gain a bit of momentum. So it's like, well, you don't really want to put it to bed, or I go on my lonesome. It was kind of this moment. It was like, where do we go with it? And there was that choice, and it was like, okay, well, you can go and work on your album, you can do that, and do your gigs and stuff, and I can kind of continue with this, and it's life, isn't it? It's what happens. People get busy, man. Like that. Some people ask, they were like, "What happened?" And it's so busy. People are just busy, man. It's it's one of them, and I didn't want to really replace him because I think that'd be a bit ridiculous. So it was just a way of like, well, let's kind of slightly jiggle the format a little bit. Let's have things a little bit different. Let's use this as an opportunity to evolve it into something else, or something a little bit different. And as I say, in a couple of weeks I'll be doing like an in-person one, first one. Something different. And in a year's time it might be as different again. It might somebody else might be sat on the sofa next to me. Who knows? You know what I mean? I'm kind of open to seeing where what kind of presents itself. I think it's a fluid thing, this whole podcast thing. I mean, you'll have noticed that we used to have intros and outros and stuff like that. And after a while it was like, I think this was kind of part of why it was, we kind of both knew it was becoming drawing to a close, because we'd ran out of things to talk about between the two of us. Personally, we'd talked about so many different things. We'd done like best new vocalists, best guitarists, new bands, old bands, legacy bands, and it's like, where do you go from here? So like we were like dropping things and slimming things down, and it was like kind of, as I say, then there was time as well on top of that, and it was maybe it just needed to evolve, just go to that next stage.
Oh, it's like some things just progress naturally, don't they? It just becomes it's not a conscious decision necessarily. It's just one of those things that it happened, and things happen for whatever reason they happen.
Exactly. And because it's me at the minute, I'm just me doing it, I can be available to either go out to a gig and chat with somebody in person, or maybe somebody out on in a different country much later on at night. Aaron doesn't have to think, oh well, I've got to get home by such and such. Or so, what I mean? Like if somebody's out in Tennessee, when we did the last one he did with Landon of Goodbye June.
Oh yeah.
Because of the time zone difference, we were doing it at like midnight. So it's like, do you know what I mean? It's difficult. So it becomes this really hard thing of like, where like how can we carry this on in such a way? And if it's just me, then I can kind of be a bit more flexible.
Yeah, of course.
And when I'm working with bands, because I do photography as well, like film and photography, I'm out and about, and if these two things aligned, we have the equipment literally in the same building, so it's what I mean, it kind of works better, whereas Aaron has to kind of look at, well, I've got to do a gig here, I've got to do a gig here. And I'd be interested to see how the lads in those Damn Crows manage it. I don't know how they have the time for doing that shit, because it's a stretch. I mean, we used to do one every week, and then we moved to kind of every other week, like a bi-weekly thing.
Yeah.
Because it's just, I mean, as you probably know yourself, getting a consistent stream of guests all the time, and fitting in their schedule, it's hard doing it every week.
I mean, I'm sure you're the same, but I've had weeks where I've not done any interviews.
Yeah.
And then I've had weeks where
exactly, you do like
3 interviews a night or something.
Yeah. You get this kind of these waves of people that come in and out, and I'm grateful for everybody that's come on and will come on, but you get time. I mean, like recently with because of Download Festival, nobody's going to want to talk to me over Download. They're either at Download playing it, or they're going as a fan. It's like, but you can guarantee in the next few weeks, every man and his dog will want to all of a sudden.
Yeah.
So it's that kind of thing, and I'd say I've got more freedom, to be able to. I have a little bit more time, because of the job that I'm fortunate enough to do. So that was kind of the reason behind all of that. But who knows what the future holds? I mean, Aaron could be the first guest that's also been on the show. I mean, that'd be a strange world, wouldn't it? So who knows? I mean, if they, whenever they get around to releasing that album that they're up to doing right now, it could be something around the corner with that. But who knows what's going to happen?
So have you had any guests in particular that you've enjoyed speaking to? Obviously, you're saying that, like myself, that's you're grateful to whoever you talk to, but are there any standout guests, as it were?
Yes, there was, for me, I'd say, ironically, TJ, who we mentioned, of Georgia Thunderbolts. Their album ranked in my ranking last year, if you remember. I think I put them at number 1, didn't I?
Yeah, number 1.
I'm pretty sure I put them at number 1. And their kind of music just really struck a chord with me personally.
Yeah.
And again, it goes back to if you're enthusiastic about it, I think that person's gonna vibe off that. And we just kind of really hit it off, and we had a great chat. And we got into talking about vinyl and all these kind of interesting things. And, I love people that come from a very different background to myself, because it's just interesting to find out, how somebody else lives.
It is, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's going back to that human side that we're talking about.
Exactly. And, he talked about where he grew up, and it felt like something from like 40, 50 years ago, like he said, it was kind of like this coal mining kind of town. And once the mine closes, that's it for this whole town. And he pans across, and it's just like, the trees everywhere, and it's like in the middle of nowhere, you know what I mean? Like, and it's stuff like that I find particularly interesting. It's like this guy's come from the middle of nowhere, and he's supporting Deep Purple. Again, I love stuff like that. So yeah, he's certainly up there for me. I think again, Jack Broadbent, a fairly recent one, because again, it's that story of, he started off busking on a street, and he's gone from that to playing with Ronnie Wood, supporting Leonard Skinner, which I think is, it's an amazing journey. And I love those kind of those stories where it is that kind of journey from, I don't know, playing in a tiny little place or in the middle of nowhere or something. I find that kind of stuff quite inspiring. I'm trying to think, is there anybody else like a real kind of top draw one? I think Susie Quattro was a big moment.
Yeah, I bet.
Purely because of like, she's had this incredible career, this long kind of career, and it's weird to think She was casually dropping stories about jamming with Ted Nugent and having a Bob Seger turn up with an acoustic guitar and play a load of original songs. Yeah, like you just played a set of original songs at essentially what was a cover gig.
Yeah,
and it went down really well. And it's again stuff like that. I mean, that's kind of a slightly different angle, but it was like getting a glimpse into what is now kind of historic moments in music. Like she saw something happening right in front of her that now people look back on and go, oh, he's
one of those moments.
Yeah, and he's like this big deal, and you get a glimpse into that when she talks about that, and obviously she's had her story herself. It's like it's interesting, but yeah, I think those two kinds of things. I'd love to speak to more kind of musicians that have had this amazing long career, because there's so many stories.
Oh yeah.
And any person that can reel off those kind of things. Like there's one that I've got to come out. I mean, when does this come out roughly? Would you know?
Next couple of weeks.
Okay, next couple of weeks. So
we can put out whenever works for you, really, man. We can put out whenever works for you, really, man.
Yeah, well, whenever, man. I mean, next week I've interviewed. There's a lady that was in a 70s kind of prog band. Called Curved Air.
Yeah.
Okay, well, she's kind of like, she knew my dad from back in the day.
Oh, cool.
And stuff. Yeah. And she dropped randomly into this interview, which by the time we talk about this, will be released. But she dropped in that they'd played this gig, and supporting them, they had a young. What must have been a teenage Gary Moore support them. And I was like, what? I was like, hang on a minute. Like, do you mean that Gary Moore?
Yeah.
Like, and it was like, it was that Gary Moore came in as a kid. And it's like, again, it goes back to this like crazy, that you saw the birth of this kind of amazing musician, and she spoke about supporting Black Sabbath, and it's like, this is insane. Because it's like, you look back on these kind of huge musicians, and they've had these these real kind of humble origins. I love hearing those kind of stories. I think
I'm with you on that. It's like when I got to speak to KK Downing, the priest, and we were chatting about everything. And we spoke obviously about priest, about what he's doing now with KK's priest, and everything in between. And then we started talking about like sort of formative years and stuff. And he's on about. He said, "Yeah, well, so what was the moment where you were like, that's what I want to do?" So obviously, because I was always into music, and he said, anyway, he goes, we got word that there was this American ex-military guy who was going around touring, and he was supposed to be really good, and we snuck in to see him, and literally like mates opened the fire exit door to this venue in Birmingham, and we walked in and crammed and shouldn't have been there. I was 15. I was like, all right, okay. Yeah, that ex-military American guy was fucking Hendrix.
Wow.
And I saw him in this tiny little club in West Midlands somewhere. And like a ridiculous Wednesday afternoon kind of matinee gig, and it was like, what? And it's these things, and like you say, it just brings out that reality that all these bands that like me and you like now, like Crows and Revival Black, and everyone along the scene, Dirty Honey, and Damn Truth guys, and everyone else has come through the ranks. At some point, all the bands that we regard as being, like saying, in that godly like status, at some point they were playing a club on a Wednesday night to 4 people and a dog. And I think it just brings that back to it. So when you're hearing those stories and they're honest about them, I think that's one thing I love about it. And these interviews, the honesty. And that, for one of that veil gets dropped. They're not trying to be the person they are on stage, you're just talking, and they're being honest. And I think that always like I say, it goes back to that human side that we were talking about earlier, and it's always much more interesting than who snorted what and who did what to who.
Yes. No, I completely agree. It's interesting. I mean, like that kind of prompted my memory on just before Christmas. We had a chat with Blaze Bailey, the most enthusiastic man on the planet.
I got him as well, and Joe will tell you she was. We had dinner. She was in the kitchen, which is through that door there. And then I came in here to do the interview, and she's like, "Well, I've just finished washing up, and then I'll just like chill out in the kitchen because she didn't sort of want to walk through the back of the camera sort of thing." I was like, "Okay." And after about an hour of him just being Blaze and being enthusiastic, what you didn't see was Joe basically dropped to the floor and then crawled along upstairs to go to the bedroom to chill out because she's just like, she goes, "I love Blaze, but I just got to the point where I was like, I don't know when he's going to stop talking."
Yeah, that was the thing, because there's been 2 interviews where the guest has been that enthusiastic that we've had to like we looked at the list of questions, because we have kind of we've always had these kind of, as I say, we did the research and we try and pick out specific things, but there's been 2 that have been so enthusiastic that you just cannot.
You can't even crowbar it in, can you?
You have to fight your way. I mean, I had to shout at Blaze Bailey. I had to shout my question at him just to kind of drown him out, because he was so full of enthusiasm. But there's Blaze Bailey and there's Lips of Anvil.
Oh yeah,
the 2 most enthusiastic people I've ever spoken to. But the interesting thing in particular with Blaze was, once we got through all of that kind of that enthusiasm and that kind of like Blaze being Blaze.
Yeah.
We, in the latter half, I don't know whether he was just running out of steam, but it got kind of more real, and that was really interesting to see. You know what Blaze would be like in a conversation with his mate in a I don't know, a quiet bar or somewhere like that, you know. And it was just really interesting hearing. I mean, he spoke again. It goes back to the humble beginnings. You know, he spoke about he was living in a caravan with his family for so many months, and they didn't have running water. It was like
the land his granddad had or something on the back of it.
Yeah, and I was like, I've never heard this before. And that, again, when you can get something out of it, out of that interview, that, you know, you can do all the research, but they just come out with that kind of nugget of, like, you know, I mean, maybe they've said it before, but like it's hard to find.
Yeah.
And it's like you feel like, okay, well, we've cut through here, and we've got you know, he gets it. You know, he knows what we're looking for, you know, to a degree. You know, just something real and relatable. But I mean, that was another level. But I mean, all credit to him. I mean, his enthusiasm is
it's infectious.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you can't fault him. You know, I mean, my dad's a big Blaze Bailey fan. So when I told him, I said, "Oh, we've got Blaze Bailey." And he was like, you know, bloody hell, you know. Now, this is a guy that at one point in time fronted Iron Maiden. You know, like for me, I mean, Iron Maiden are kind of one of my top bands. So anybody that's even remotely associated with them at some point, it's, you know, it's a benchmark kind of moment, isn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that was another crazy one.
I mean, when I got to, it was funny because I spoke to Blaze a couple of, maybe about 6 weeks before he played Stone Dead Festival, which I'm also involved in. And we had a really, like you guys did, we had a really cool chat with Blaze. Like, it was really good. Like I say, enthusiasm coming out of his ears, especially because I was fortunate to get sent the tracks for the album that he just released, War Within Me. And great record. Like really, really solid record. And I gave that a good, you know, try to soak that up as much as I could before I was speaking to him. Like, and there was a particular track on it that I really liked, and I was talking to him about that. And again, you could see that, oh, this guy isn't talking to me to talk about Maiden. He's come to talk to me. And then again went off. And like I say, we had a really very fast-paced, very enthusiastic chat for an hour, which was like a whirlwind, but I loved it.
Oh yeah.
I mean that in any disrespect at all. And Blaze, when he was talking to me, he was talking about how he still suffers a bit of stage fright, like just nerves getting him before he goes on stage. And I think that's healthy. I think you know, I remember seeing a thing with an interview with Steven Tyler once, and he was asked, you know, you still get stage fright, and he said the day he doesn't is the day he stops performing, you know, because that's the day he stopped giving a shit, sort of thing. And so I knew Blaze was about, and he played Stone Dead a couple of years prior. He'd come back to do an Iron Maiden set, and I went into, I knew he was about, but I hadn't seen him at this point, and I wanted to say hello, obviously, because we'd had the interview, and I thought, oh, it'll be cool to say hello. And I was working backstage anyway, doing all like making sure bands are getting back and forth and whatnot. And the rest of his band was there. I just hadn't seen him yet. And the reason for that was he was having a bit of calming out time, and where the sound desk was basically. And I'd got in there to make sure everybody with the sound desk was all right, because there was some food that was going around. And Blaze was stood there, and Blaze was sort of clearly trying to, you know, set himself. And I thought, well, I don't want to thing it up, so I just sort of went, all right, Blaze, and he went, all right, mate, and then he went, then he double took, and he went, Lee, and I went, yeah, and he went, oh, hello, mate, and off he went again, and I was just like, this is brilliant. I've never felt cooler.
Yeah, exactly. You have that kind of moment, don't you? Right? It's like, oh, it's quite cool. Yeah, I mean, I haven't had the in-person realization moment yet. Maybe in a few days we'll get there. but yeah, I mean that kind of stuff it's always great, isn't it? You know. Yeah, we'll see where things go in the future. You know, who knows? I'd love to get kind of more. I mean, you'll notice at the start of this new series, we had a run of like quite a few American artists, because I feel that like we've done a lot of English bands. You know, we've done like up and coming bands, we've done, you know, some decent level bands, but I felt like we hadn't had enough American bands. You know, people from across the pond. You know, and that's kind of an area which I'd love to kind of explore more. You know, that kind of particularly American classic rock, and anywhere around there. I mean, metal. I mean, I'm quite open to different genres, but yeah, you know, I'd say that, and you know, maybe some German bands. You know, let's get kind of interesting. You know, maybe try and unearth somebody. I mean, that'd be great to kind of find somebody that's you know, kind of untapped potential or something. You know, yeah.
So yeah, so to bastardize your own question,
here we go,
to end off,
yeah.
Choose one band from the past, one from the present to interview. Who you got?
Okay, I've thought about this for a while, because I thought at some point somebody's going to ask that question. They're going to reverse it on me. Okay, from the past, do they? Here we go. This is a weird reverse, isn't it? Can they be dead, or you know, do they have to be? You know what I mean? Like, can they still be alive but be classed as the past?
Either or, whatever's taking.
Okay.
You can either have a band where either, you know, somewhere like, you know, someone like, for example, Deep Purple, where John Lord's died, or you have, you know, the band that have retired maybe, or just a band from like.
It'd be interesting. I mean, for me, it's somebody that I'd obviously never get an opportunity to speak to would be like a Jimi Hendrix or somebody like that. I think it would be particularly interesting to find somebody that's been so tremendously influential on just the entire genre, and kind of see what their view would be.
Yeah.
Like, do they realize that?
Yeah, they realize the impact they've had.
Exactly. Like, you know, if you could maybe place them in today, you know, and see, particularly with Jim Hendrix, see all these copycats. You know, what does he make of it? Like, I imagine he'd be quite flattered. Or, you know, I mean, maybe even further back, you know. I don't know. It'd be interesting. For me, though, I think right up there would be like a Robert Plant, because I've always been a big Led Zeppelin fan.
Yeah.
And you know, I mean, I'd interview him today. You know, I'm not going to turn him down. I'm not going to be like, well, you know, it's not. Yeah, you know, in your younger days, Robert. I think it'd be somebody particularly interesting just to speak to, because he's dabbled in various different genres. Like, I'd love to kind of get in his head and see how he kind of thinks, see how he works. But again, I mean, everybody always mentions Rival Sons, obviously, on with that question.
Yeah.
And I think Jay Buchanan, you know, he's a guy that today is influencing other musicians, and you know, he's from seeing other interviews, he seems quite a humble guy. So it'd be interesting to kind of see whether he recognizes that. You know, because it's a weird point in their career in particular, because they, you know, they're still rising up, but they've also influenced these other bands that are kind of, you know, maybe even supporting them at this point. But yeah, I don't know. There's so many. You know, once we've finished this call, I could probably go. Oh, you know, I mean, even now I'm thinking, you know, Zakk Wylde. I've always kind of admired Zakk Wylde, but. Yeah, I mean, maybe like somewhere around those three. I think that'd be kind of the top one. But I think Jimi Hendrix, somebody that's already passed, would be.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, or like if you really want to go left field, like a Frank Zappa.
Yeah.
Just because it's, you know, again, like, how does his mind work? You know, like I'd love to kind of find that out, because I mean, as you'll probably notice, sometimes I ask around particular songs the meaning behind them and stuff like that. Like, I'd love to know how he kind of dissects his own songs, because it's so out there, some of it. Yeah, and I mean, another one like Jim Morrison.
That'd be cool.
You know, yeah. I might do that actually. I might say Jim Morrison. Somebody that's gone. Yeah, you see what I mean? I could be here all day, man. You know, yeah. I've always liked the Doors. So yeah, maybe Jim Morrison. Or I could be like, have my cake and eat it, and go with like Jimi Hendrix and Jim Morrison in the same room.
Just being greedy now, right?
I mean, it's never going to happen, so I may as well live my dream.
Yeah, you might as well have a fantasy about it. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. No, thanks for your time, buddy. Great talking.
No, it's cool, man. It's always a pleasure.
Always good one. Cheers, mate.
Cheers.